Hello, beautiful, and welcome to Finding Fertility. I'm your host, Monica Cox from findingfertility.co, and I created this podcast to help get you to start thinking outside of the box and realize that your infertility might have nothing to do with your lady bits. Rooted in functional medicine and personal experience, Finding Fertility is all about looking at the whole body and finding the root cause of your infertility. Finding Fertility does not diagnose, prescribe, or treat any issues of infertility, but what we do is take a holistic approach and improve your diet and your lifestyle to get you steps closer to creating your dream family. Just by being here with me, listening to this podcast, you're already going down the right path to making your dreams come true. Let's do this together. Happy Friday, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Finding Fertility. I'm your host, Monica Cox, and I am incredibly honored that you are here today, becoming the conscious mama you were born to be. Today, we have another amazing podcast discovery call. I know they're always all amazing, but I'm just so honored that I can, one, do these, and another that women are willing to come on and share their stories for you guys to relate to as well. Remember, if you want your own personal discovery call, there is the link down in the show notes, and make sure you are on the email list when I call out for new participants for the podcast discovery calls. So without further ado, let's get to today's episode. Just tell me a little bit about your journey with fertility. What is going on there?
So my husband and I, we've been together for over 13 years, but we're married for 5. So Since we got married, we never tried to not get pregnant. And I didn't really know much back then about, tracking my cycle and this and that. So probably wasn't until maybe 8 months in that I was like, okay, something's up. And so we've been trying for 5 years.
Okay.
With no success. I've never had a positive pregnancy test, no miscarriage, nothing.
Yep. Okay.
So at that time I saw just my regular PCP for an annual blood workup. And at that time, my thyroid numbers, my TSH was extremely low, 0.0 something. But, a lot of doctors only test TSH and T4. And so when I pushed her on that to say, could this be one of the reasons why I'm not getting pregnant? She was a little dismissive. So I saw an OBGYN who actually wanted to delve deeper into it, sent me to an endocrinologist. I did have elevated antibodies. At the time, there were only 17 TPO, 17, I don't know the measurement, UG per ml or whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
But that endocrinologist told me this is not the reason why you're not getting pregnant. So they kind of just dismissed me there. And when I went back to that OBGYN to tell her what the endo said, she's like, just keep trying for a year and you'll get pregnant, kind of a thing. So I knew that was wrong then. And I went to a fertility clinic, probably a little over a year of us trying. And at the time I was 31, so I'm 36 now.
Uh-huh.
So when I went to the fertility clinic, they did all their, the full workup that they do, tested the, estrogen, whatever they test on days 3, 7, whatever they do, check the follicles. I had an HSG, diagnosed with unexplained infertility.
Mm-hmm.
The most annoying diagnosis. So we did 4 cycles of IUI, natural, unmedicated. I'm not a big, I'm scared to actually take medicine. I do it if I have to, but I was ovulating on my own according to them. So I was like, why am I going to take Clomid or whatever?
Yeah.
Clearly unsuccessful. They want to go do IVF next, but I don't want to do that if it's not going to work. So I'm really trying to figure out what's going on. Also, I did see a naturopathic doctor September of last year who ran every blood test imaginable on me. I had 30 something vials of blood drawn. They were like, this is the amount that gets drawn on transplant patients. And I'm like, okay. everything came back according to her within, normal limits. But now at that time, my TPO antibodies were 100 and something. And the naturopathic doctor still said that I was never fully formally diagnosed as having Hashimoto's, but clearly something's going on with my
Mm-hmm.
thyroid. I also did testing. I don't know if I'm allowed to say like names of companies, but I
Yeah.
did testing through a company called Fertility,
Uh-huh.
who they check uterine and vaginal microbiome, and they check reproductive allo and autoimmunity.
Yeah.
And with those results, I did come back as having elevated natural killer cells.
And did you
And
bring those results to your OBGYN?
so when I did the result, I'm not seeing any fertility clinic at the moment. So I didn't take those results to anybody yet. That was probably like a few months ago.
Okay. Do you know my full story?
I've seen your story, and that's why you caught my eye, because I know you said you had elevated natural killer cells also.
Yeah. Okay, so um after my second failed IVF, I demanded the autoimmune testing because I knew intuitively that was my issue, even though I wasn't presenting, same as you, not getting pregnant at all. When the results came back, they were positive. And this was after a year of being mega good, diet, lifestyle, like all those things, right? I was able to ovulate. I was producing what I can only assume now is a mixture of good enough to not good enough egg quality, right? Because that is a huge problem with a silent autoimmune issue, let alone a full-blown autoimmune issue, is
Right.
when you have that elevated inflammation, it can affect egg quality. Um, even though everything looked perfect and fine and stuff, it was still affecting implantation.
Mhm.
So it sounds like with your test results on multiple different levels that there's this little red flag, even though they're saying, and it just blows my mind that any medical professional, because it literally is just their opinion.
Right.
There's no medical behind that. It's just like, oh, well,
Agreed.
I don't think that is it. And that is so frustrating. And even like not just medical professionals do it, coaches do it too. Like I get it all the time because unfortunately, like I'm not the first one people come to. It's usually most people I work with have seen multiple people. And I even hear it from naturopathic, you know, functional medicine. Oh, well, that's
Right.
not it.
Right.
Okay. So let's just assume you have this low grade underlining autoimmune issue that is affecting the quality of egg and implantation.
Mhm.
Okay. If you moved into IVF, there is a lower percentage chance of it working without immune support.
Right. Like
Um,
intralipids and whatever they do,
yeah.
right, to suppress the immune system. Yeah.
Yeah, you would be looking at autoimmune or immune suppressing drugs, which interlipids, Clexane, steroids, things of that nature, which aren't bad.
Mhm.
I have an IVF baby that I use those drugs with. But I was 110% protecting my health too. Okay, because
Right.
there's zero research on long-term effects of using those drugs before, during, and after pregnancy.
Right.
Okay. But first we got to get to the first goal is really just egg quality,
Right.
right? So your intuition is obviously have been pushing you down this line of a borderline autoimmune. I don't want to call it silent, but I'm assuming that, you've been doing gut health things, you've been doing mindset things. Like, what have you been doing? What do you feel is working? What do you feel is missing?
So slowly but surely, I've, changed out all my skincare, makeup, cleaning products, to be as, natural as possible or non-toxic as possible. Um, I did do a autoimmune protocol. It was like after the holidays. So I probably could do it longer, but I did it for 30 days and then started reintroducing things. The only problem I really had with that, like I didn't really notice any obvious symptoms when I started reintroducing. So it's like, am I still missing something? Like that's the frustrating part of that to me. But overall, I really do try to eat like organic, not processed, no refined sugars, meats, vegetables.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating because I don't really know what else to do.
Yeah. Okay. So have you ever done a protocol of healing leaky gut? Has that been kind of a focus of, even if it's not supplementation, using bone broth and liver on a consistent basis? Is that something that
So
anyone's worked with you?
I do use bone broth um like a couple times a week.
Okay.
And I don't eat liver, but I take a beef liver supplement.
Yeah.
I know it's probably not the same thing, but I don't know. I have tried to eat liver and I can't do it.
That's
Um, so not a leaky gut protocol specifically, but I have been doing things like that.
okay. Okay. So this is it's funny how the universe gives you mirrors. So when you're in a healing phase, right? Let's just assume that it stems mostly from your gut and it has presented this low grade silent autoimmune issue with maybe some potential thyroid issues. Um what for me, even though all my normal and common health issues like dramatically improved over that year, I was looking at what my little niggly things, so like a bit of constipation, but it's not that big of a deal because I used to be constipated all the time, or a bit of bloating here, whatever it is. I was looking at it like, well, it improved so much, so surely that's not contributing to anything.
Mhm.
Where for me, I had a huge intolerance to the nightshades, and that's like a huge thing on AIP. Those last few symptoms went away.
When you
And
gave that up
when I
completely?
gave that up completely,
Mhm.
then it's still a healing game from there, right? Like these things don't just switch off overnight.
Right.
Okay. I wish I knew exactly when I kind of fixed my fertility, but because I went AIP right before my second embryo transfer, which that's my IVF baby. I stayed AIP that whole 9 months. We didn't try naturally for 2 years. After that, I was breastfeeding and I didn't have my period. And then my husband went away and went to countries with the Zika virus. And we
Mm.
knew that we were going back for our last two embryos. And we knew it was going to be a big deal at the clinic. So we used protection. Um, and then we were going through our last cycle, got pregnant, had a miscarriage, got pregnant naturally 2 months later.
Mhm.
So in between that time, I obviously um, healed completely to allow one, the egg quality to improve greatly, and two, the natural killer cells not to be an issue, to get to a
Mhm.
normal level. But I have to say I was strict.
Mhm.
Um, and I probably had like two incidents with nightshades that were by accident. Other than that, I did not go near, and I didn't go near gluten. I was a little OCD over it, but I didn't have guidance and support. But I do believe that if there is this underlining issue, there's still something triggering it, and
Mhm.
it might not be obvious because you've healed so much.
Right.
Um, when you did AIP for that 30 days, um, was the stress of it too much to continue? Did you feel like you weren't seeing benefits to it? What, like, was the
Um,
emotional process
so
around
I
it?
so I know that it was stressful a little bit to keep. I did pretty good, I made sure I planned meals out. I'm the kind of person where I feel like if I have to, like, know what I'm eating, like, my next meal, or else that, like, stresses me out, but I did pretty good with planning and meal prepping. Um, but, it's so cliche or whatever, but I come from, like, an Italian family and, like, food is
No?
our love language. I'm like,
Right.
and it's not that I feel like I have to eat, whatever, but I just like to. And I'm like, well, if I can reintroduce whatever cheese and it doesn't give me a problem, then you know what I mean? Like, then I don't really know. It was stressful, but not so stressful where like I couldn't continue doing it, I
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, it's not cliche. Food is a huge part of our lives, and especially when you come from a culture that is, based around food too. Most cultures are, but I totally get it.
Yeah.
And it becomes stressful, and then it is that kind of where you have to step into that mindset game.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, have you done a food sensitivity test?
I have not.
Do you think doing a food sensitivity test would help you move forward in sticking to a diet?
I think if I knew definitively what
Yeah.
was causing an issue, absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say, so I don't know if you like believe in this, but I have a friend who does something called bioenergetic intolerance elimination. It's kind of like energy work.
Uh-huh.
And it's sort of like muscle testing, kinesiology,
Yeah.
like that
Yeah, yeah.
sort of thing. And so we tested me for like the major food allergens, and dairy is the only thing that came back, like my body was like, okay, maybe this could be causing an issue.
Yeah.
But everything else was like, oh no, we're good, this is good. So I don't know, but I would be open to doing a food sensitivity test just so I can maybe have more of a clear handle on what's causing a problem, if anything.
Yeah. I totally believe in it. I use the body code. I use the energetic code. Site K is all muscle code, or
Yeah.
like muscle testing. Um, in my own uh, uh, scientific studies, I suppose. Right. So I know I'm intolerant to these nightshades, and I've been off of them for 10 years, and they still cause me an issue. And I am definitely in this point of my life where that should not happen. I'm choosing to believe that whatever, whether I was born with it genetically, whether it was energetically taken on, whatever it is, I feel like I've worked hard enough for real food not to be an issue,
Right.
right? In my ongoing investigations, the energy work doesn't seem to be enough.
Yeah.
Um, there's like genetic factors with the MTHFR. There's some like other stuff that you need like a quantum energy healer support with. It's so multi-layered.
Yeah.
And then um it is, which it all comes down to, which sounds so like basic and easy, but the hardest thing anyone will have to do, it's the deep belief from shifting from the reality that you're living to going to the reality that can be true.
Hmm.
And you'll be in this like waiting zone, right? And you'll
Mhm.
eat nightshades and they'll still affect you, but then you have to, like, whatever. There's multiple levels. So, yes, I believe that you can test food allergies through muscle testing. Do I believe you can clear energies around them? Absolutely. Do I think it's enough? No.
And I agree with you. I
Not
agree.
all the time, I should say.
Yeah.
Not all the time. So for me, with unexplained infertility, but I'm just going to say, I don't really feel it's unexplained. You have test results. I mean, that's where the testing comes in for me. It's valid information that if something is red flagged, even if it's just above, that is an issue, right? And what is that root cause of it? Okay, let's just pretend you've healed your gut 80%, and it's just that 20% more because we're still eating food intolerances, or maybe if you I don't know, have you got a gut health test that's tested for H. pylori and candida and all that kind of stuff? It could literally be H. pylori,
Right.
and it's just under, like, it's so sometimes it doesn't present in people.
Right.
It could be this underlying issue that you just haven't addressed, and
Mm-hmm.
that could be the magic switch, right?
Right.
So definitely a gut health test. And if you are like, I need some hard science for the food, like I would get a food sensitivity test.
Okay.
Um, and a
The only thing because I'm not opposed to it, like I said, but and the problem is that there's so much conflicting, overwhelming
yeah,
information. It's like a lot of things I heard said, well, the food sensitivity tests aren't as accurate, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so which one do I do? How do I, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that.
yeah. So it's a high quality one. There's several out there. I use the MRT. They're going to run you over $300. They're not the ones you can buy online by yourself. Those are
Which I
all,
don't want to
yeah,
do.
those are all usually IgG tests, which test the markers in your blood of how your blood's reacting to food right now. So you literally have to be eating the food, like every single food in the world, for it to even pop up on the test. And it could be a false positive. Like maybe you just, I've most of the people who have done an IgG test are like, oh, that's all the food I was just eating in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, that's how those tests run. So yes,
Mhm.
it is an investment. Um, and no, and there isn't a test out there that's a 100% accurate, and they're not set in stone, right?
Mm.
I just had a client right now. She's just in fertility food, but you have access to the testing through fertility food. She ran it a year and a half ago. Her things have changed for her, and she just wants to see. And there are things that she's not intolerant to anymore. There's things that stayed the same, and there's new things that have popped up for her. But
Okay.
right now, as we use the testing, is like, what can we do right now? We
Mhm.
can't assume anything in the future or anything in the past, and that just gives us a good baseline to go on. Um, so that those two things, because you haven't investigated them, and you're probably sick of throwing darts in the dark, that's what I would say to you, is just invest and see what's going on there.
Mhm. I am ready and open to doing that. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I've had literally mold, cortisol, like every test under the sun, but I never did do gut health tests. So I'm open to doing those next for sure.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing about what's going to happen in your journey is that if there is like, these red flags, like, wow, I could easily change that, you're going to move really quickly out of the waiting zone, right?
Mhm.
For a lot of people who I work with, they're like, have major gut health issues. And we have to take 3 to 6 months just to do the gut health issues,
Mhm.
right? We're not talking about fertility yet, right?
Right.
You have to lower that inflammation and that oxidative stress dramatically. And then when that beginning of the healing phase has kind of settled down, that's when your body has enough to trickle down into your fertility, and especially your egg quality, because you just have to imagine your egg is the biggest cell in your body, one of the biggest cells in your body.
Mhm.
It is maturing in the environment that you are producing,
Mhm.
subconsciously or consciously. It's a reflection of your health. And it's not always set in stone. It's not always an accurate reflection, because we know the crackhead on the side of the street can get pregnant.
I was just gonna say to you, I know that like a meth head is like anyway, yeah. Anyway. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes.
Pregnancy isn't a sign of health, though. We
Right.
have this really weird, I don't know how it happened, but pregnancy isn't a sign of health. The health of our children nowadays is a clear representation that you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to be healthy to give life.
Mm-hmm.
There's two reasons I think a lot of people are going through fertility reasons. One, you're genetically prone, right? This is just genetically what your case is. There's also, I think, a spiritual side to things, where your baby is waiting up there going, I need you to be just a little bit more healthy. I
Yeah.
need you to have your shit together just a little bit more
Right.
because you're reducing my risks of having, the list is endless, right? From simple food allergies to colic to, severe autism,
Mm-hmm.
nonverbal autism,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and and to, there's definitely, we want to control it. We think, well, we're the mother. We want this. We're going to have that. And there's some babies like, well, I just want to come in on this exact date for
Yeah.
whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is this waiting game. Um, Emotionally and mentally, like, what has this fertility journey been like for you?
Um, I definitely have ups and downs. I feel like because I see a lot of girls on it's my algorithm, so I see a lot of women suffering the same thing. And I feel like overall, I've somehow, me and my husband have managed to keep a pretty positive outlook. Like I'm not unhopeful. Like there are days when I get my period and I'm like, I give up. But
Yeah.
overall, like, and also I am a Christian, so like I really rely on my faith to like get me through. So yeah, I have bad days, but overall, my relationship with my husband is good. I'm pretty positive. It's just frustrating. I'm like a fixer and like I need to figure this out. And I think it's more frustrating than anything else.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Can I tell you too
yeah.
that so something I always think about is that two things. One, my mom struggled to conceive me. I'm the oldest of three girls.
Okay.
Took her 3 years to get pregnant. She never said endometriosis, but she always, like, she saw an OBGYN who did a laparoscopic surgery, had scar tissue of some sort that was removed, and she got pregnant. My birth was traumatic. I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my chest, was flatlining, that whole, whatever. Also, on my wedding day, the videographer asked, like, what do you want in the future? And I remember saying, like, that I wanted to have kids, whatever I said. And my immediate thought after I said, I want to have kids was, you're going to look like a really big idiot if you aren't able to have kids. I had no reason to think that I was going to struggle. So I always like go back to that. Like, what is that? Is it like, I know that there's clearly physically some sort of inflammation and something I need to address, but it's also mental.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're the eldest of three girls?
Yeah.
By how
And
much?
both my sisters have kids.
Okay.
I'm my middle sister and I are 14 months apart, and me and the youngest are 4 years apart.
Okay. Uh, were Did you have a lot of responsibility as the eldest?
Um, I put a lot of pressure on myself. My parents were never like strict. You have to get good grades. Of course, they appreciated those things, but like I always, it was more of like me putting the pressure on myself. It didn't necessarily come from them.
Okay. Was there like so there's like no competition, like there was no kind of, okay.
And if you ask them, my sisters, they'll say like that I have it the most together, that I like, I was the favorite, not, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I never got in trouble. I never whatever. So like, but there was never any competition with them. Like when we were like teenagers, maybe we would fight, but we're all like really close.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think they think that you have it the most together?
I guess
And
it's because
and do you
so
feel
I'm
like you have the most together?
I would say yes, I do. And I only say so my middle sister has always been like very like scatterbrained, disorganized. I love her. She's like the artsy one, but
Yeah.
she like, doesn't have like she has a job, like she works for my dad. I don't know how to explain it without like sounding mean, but like she is a hairdresser and does like people's hair. Like she doesn't have a job that she goes to 9 to 5. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
also, so a little over a year ago, my brother-in-law died. So
Okay.
my sister, my middle sister and her two kids live with me and my husband now.
Oh, shit. Okay. Okay, that's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
Okay. And how old are the kids?
One is 12 and she was from her dad's still alive, but the second my second niece is 7 and it was her biological dad that died.
Okay.
And my sister, they were married. Um but yeah, he died very unexpectedly and tragically. So they live here now. Um
Permanently or just for a time being?
Not the intention is not permanently, but I don't see them moving out in the foreseeable future.
And I'll edit this out if you if you want
Yeah,
me to.
maybe. Yeah.
But how does that make you feel? And have you always saved her? Have you always been the savior of your two little sisters?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a big responsibility.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that. I will edit some of that out for
Yeah.
sure, just in case anyone ever stumbles on it. And even as we move through this conversation too, right? Like, I want you to be honest because the honesty is where the healing lies.
Mhm.
Okay. So before you told me all of this, what I was going to ask you as a Christian, as someone of faith, and even this can even be in spirituality too, it's the surrender
Mm.
to life,
Mhm.
right? That we all basically come here to learn.
Yeah.
Um, and as someone who is a fixer, as someone who's a savior, the eldest sister, I think that's just always a natural role for most elders who, most people who are the eldest kid.
Mhm.
Um, it does put a lot of pressure on yourself. And I was going to ask, in this journey, in your own fertility journey, surrendering and not being the savior even to yourself and um, allowing a point of your journey of your time to not overthink, to not fix it. What would
Mm.
that feel like to you?
I can't even imagine. That's where I wanna get, but I don't even know what that looks like.
Hmm.
And every
Yeah,
time like, I wanna, like, let go, but this is, like it's so hard because every month you have a reminder that it
yeah,
didn't, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. That is the hardest part about a fertility journey is um, the reminder is actually the reminder that you're still fertile too,
true.
right? That's the ironic thing about it, that every month that you get a cycle,
to celebrate, like, oh, thank God this is still here.
Yeah.
This means
No,
I'm a
that's true.
cycling female, but at the same time, it's like, oh, it didn't work again,
Right.
yet
No, that's
again.
very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Um, what I find in most people's journey is that um, you will get to a point of surrender when you feel like you've gotten all your answers.
Right. I
Um,
really do think so. I even went as far as I had 2 root canals on this side of my mouth, and I was
mhm,
like, "I gotta get these out." So in July, I had surgery where I had 2 root canals removed and I had cavitation surgery.
mhm.
Um, so, I'm all in. I mean, that was $20,000, like, I'm all in. I like, people, "Why don't you just do IVF with that?" It's like, it's not that I'm not opposed to doing it, but if there's something going on within me that it wouldn't work, like, I don't wanna invest the time, money, stress on that. I wanna try to figure out anyway, you understand. So,
Yeah.
um, I am totally on board because I know the gut health plays a huge role, so I am totally on board as that being my next steps, and, like, once I do those tests and find sensitivities or H. pylori or whatever it is, and then, like, work to avoid those things, I will feel, I think, that I've done everything that I could.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want to get to the end of your journey and just be proud and not wonder if. What if I
Right.
just did this? What if I just did that? And you only want to move into medical treatment, like especially IVF, um, feeling confident and not
Yeah.
feeling pressured,
Right.
because it can be supportive, but it's not the answer for many women. Um, okay. So let's say you get your gut health test, you get your food sensitivity test, you're on the right track. What does it look like to not think about fertility? What does life look like to be joyful and happy and fulfilling again?
Um, I think, uh, not just this, but it would be so relieving to just, like, enjoy my husband and, like, not have it be like, "Oh my god, we have to do it this day." Not I use an Anito test kit, like, testing every month, like, it would be so freeing to just, like, forget all that and just have sex because we wanna have sex and then get pregnant
Hmm.
and
Do
just,
you
like,
do you know when you ovulate? Do you feel confident that you're like regular and
yeah, so I do. I I have a follicular phase on, I guess, the shorter side, which is
Mhm.
another. So I ovulate between day like 11 and 13.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, which, I always read like conflicting things about that. It's like follicular phase isn't as important as luteal phase. So, which I don't know, but my luteal phase is always 14 days.
Yeah, you're fine.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
fine. I wouldn't overthink that at all.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so as your unofficial fertility health coach, stop
Yeah.
testing right now.
Okay. Okay.
The only reason you should be doing ovulation testing is to confirm that you are a regular ovulator, whether regular for you, right?
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
3 or 4 months of doing that and confirming that you're having a healthy ovulations, because you have those tests now available to you, Prove and other ones. Once you're like, yes, tick, I can tick that off the box. Just because you can go to the store and buy it cheaply doesn't mean you should continually do it,
Okay.
right? Just imagine it being a really expensive test. It's $1,000 every month that you have to test for this. Would you?
No.
No, you wouldn't do it. It's only because it's cheap, available. You can do it in the privacy of your home. It makes
No, you're
zero
right.
difference to your fertility journey now. It only adds pressure.
Yeah. No, yep, you're right. All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop.
So the whole like switch on these things is when I ask you guys, and you can easily do this for yourself, what would my life look like? if I had all the answers, right? Because you were still on that journey, that reality is still going to be happening. But what can I do right now to live the life I want to live?
Yeah.
And stop testing for ovulation, stop testing for pregnancy tests, you know, is a
I will
huge,
tell you,
huge
I
release.
know that's like a huge thing where women test before I have never taken a pregnancy test because I'm like, I'm just gonna wait for my period. That part I never understood,
Good,
but I
good.
do religiously test my ovulation. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop that.
Yeah, stop that. Donate whatever expensive kit you bought to a friend who's starting their journey, and
Okay.
just know with confidence you ovulate. You're
Yeah.
regular. Bring the joy. That is I wish I knew a little bit more scripture to kind of like get in there with it, but that's what God wants you to do.
No, you're 100% right.
God wants you to live on this like vibrating, joyful life in his light, you know? And when you are down, stuck into these kind of weird, um, literally made up by man, right? You're getting distracted. You're not
Yeah.
able to listen. You're not able to surrender. You're not able to be in the present moment because you're in the past or in the future. And
Yep.
it's almost, it's all of it is living in the reality that you want to create while still living in the reality that it's not there yet.
Mhm. Mhm.
So find the things. What was life before you got sucked into all the fertility little things? Were you spending more time in community? Were you going out more? Were you riding your bike? Like I have a client right now who stopped riding her motorcycle and it was like literally her only passion. I was like,
Mhm.
get back on the motorcycle,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? For thousands and thousands of years, women rode horseback, you know,
Right.
like through, ovulation and pre-pregnancy, like they were doing crazy things.
Right.
They were living hard lives. They were not on bed rest. That's just not
Yep.
how it is. And yes, of
Doing like
course.
hard manual labor.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
So I'm not saying that if your doctor tells you to bed rest, bed rest, but it's really getting back into that joy of life. And I just think we have to kind of go to the bottom and then get ourselves out of it. Like, okay, it's not working, right? Testing
Mhm.
ovulation every month is
Clearly
not
not.
working.
It's just stressing me out. Yeah.
Yeah. So notice those things in your life right now that you can change, that you can feel confident that, okay, I know that information. I'm going to move on.
Mhm.
And in regards going back to that subconscious belief of, your mom had a hard time, so I'm going to have a hard time.
Mm.
A traumatic birth. So what you obviously recognized it, right? It's been in your mind, it's there consciously. What type of support have you done to maybe shift those subconscious beliefs?
I actually I've done a motion code and I tried a hypnotherapist, but I felt like it was more like a meditation and not like I was being hypnotized. And I also am reading a book by Marissa Pierce.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so those are the things that I've done.
Cool. All right. So you're open to it.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we have our faith, sometimes we don't see that it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like the
No, no,
subconscious
I'm there.
mind is, God.
God made that
Um,
too. Right?
right? Exactly. So that's great. Um, your reality now that it is hard to get pregnant. That's your reality,
Right.
right?
Right.
You've proven yourself right.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so stepping into the new reality of it's gonna be easy. What
Yeah.
when you say that to yourself or when you think that, what emotions come up in your body?
I feel like it's hard for me to say
Yeah.
because like I like even when I'm talking to people and I'm like, So I have like an extra room in my house and I call it the baby room. And like sometimes it comes out freely and sometimes it's like the baby room because I don't want to like look like an idiot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm
Okay.
not fully there where I'm like just talking about it freely, like it will be easy. I'm fertile. You know what I mean? It doesn't come easy for me to say or think.
Okay. All right. So, um, do you say when I get pregnant or if I get pregnant?
I consciously, like, I try to make it a point to say when.
Okay.
Um, I also don't even like saying trying to conceive or
Mm-hmm.
like unexplained infertility. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even want those like words attached to me, but it's like sometimes it just comes out like that.
Yeah, exactly. I get it. Okay. So mindset is going to be crucial. Um, um, okay. So the subconscious mind works and it's easy to access when you're in the theta alpha state, right? That's what meditation is. You're
Right.
literally you're hemi-syncing your brain, you're making your brain work as one. And a hack that you can do is when you're falling asleep at night, before you fall asleep, you get in that theta and alpha state naturally. When the moment you wake up, you're in theta and alpha, and you can receive these messages so much clearer. So in your notes, I'll put some links, but there's easy, just repetitive affirmations that you can listen to when you fall asleep and listen to, like set your alarm 10 minutes early. So your alarm goes off, you kind of like just try not to wake yourself up that much, have everything ready to go, put it in. Even if you fall asleep, you're still in that theta alpha state, and it can just help. It's just like a little biohack that you can do
Mhm.
for your mindset. But when you're in reality and you
Mm.
have those opportunities to either, when you're thinking about it or saying it out loud, saying it with confidence, even if
Okay.
you don't believe it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Because your subconscious mind will want to prove what you think. So when we're on that teeter zone of like, you obviously have the deep belief that you were meant to be a mom, right? You would not be here. You would not pay $20,000 to get your teeth fixed
Right.
if that was not a thing, right?
Right, right.
So that deep belief is what's going to carry you through to do some of these things that feel ridiculous or feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yep. And
Okay.
I'm definitely on board for all of that.
Yeah. Um, what have you done around your traumatic birth?
The only thing I've ever done was emotion code for around that.
Okay. And how, after doing the emotion code, how did you feel?
So when I've done it a few times, but when we did it around that specifically, um, that was the only time, like, during emotion code that I had a release, like, I cried.
Yeah.
And, I felt, like, it really exhausted after. That this is
Yeah.
probably, I wanna say, like, 8 months ago now. So I had those feelings in the immediate, but, I mean, after that, I didn't really, like, feel different overall.
Yeah. And the thing is I'm not sure you would, right?
Mhm.
Like a traumatic birth is not something that I can say, okay, go back and feel that. Right? Because you're
Right,
not
right.
like you've forgotten it. And I mean, the fact is if your mom or whoever was around didn't tell you about it, you wouldn't even know it
True.
was a thing.
Right.
Right? So it's great that sometimes people don't even have those emotional release. Everyone's so different when we're releasing emotions, especially trapped ones that we can't consciously relate to,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. But
No, it does, yeah.
yeah, so it's really great that you've even done anything around it,
Mhm.
because it starts in the womb. You start feeling everything that your mother feels, and to have a traumatic birth like that, it can be just little things, little impactful things. Um, Okay. Is there anything else that comes up for you that you feel has been missing in your journey or hasn't been talked about or you think is related?
No, I think we've covered everything that I think about it here, and there's nothing in my life like that I think I'm not addressing, or at least not trying to address.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
So I would say no.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, it's pretty obvious. I would want you to investigate your gut health and those food sensitivities so you can feel confident and just get on the right thing and not go 30 days and reintroduce. You're like, okay, this is my lifestyle. Here we go. Like the ovulation thing, check, I'm doing it right. I'm going to move
Yeah.
on with my life.
Mhm.
I would definitely keep, the mindset is going to be a big thing. Really shift those emotions into aligning with that deep belief you already have in yourself, right? Get
Mhm.
that other layer of subconscious. There's so many different layers. And I would really start exploring a lot of the times when we haven't had traumatic or obvious traumatic childhoods,
Mhm.
we tend to like, no, nothing happened there, right? Nothing.
Mhm.
But when we start getting radically honest with why we are either a people pleaser, a doer, a type Aer, an overachiever, there's some kind of underlining thing missing from our own personal self-love and our own personal self-worth. And we can all work on that, right?
Agreed.
Really coming from that heart centeredness of true, pure love.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think it's like make or break for your journey, but I think it would be just something that you can work on now because you have the time.
Right.
Right? When motherhood comes, what tends to happen is the things that we don't know about start pinging up through our children. And
Yeah.
you're like, why do I emotionally feel this way? Because you're crying over a red popsicle and you want a blue one. Like,
Right.
where the hell is that coming from?
No, I get that.
Just being the eldest, obviously carrying, being protective of your sisters, things like that. Being the one who has it together. And a lot of times it just comes down to personalities,
Right.
right? You
Right.
know, um, I would say too, I don't know why it keeps popping up, but just um the sense of the responsibility on you. Like you
Mm.
said, you knew it was going to be you who had to take care, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And even though it's amazing that you get to be that person,
Yeah.
are we truly choosing to be that way out of just pure love and compassion or out of duty?
Yeah. If I had it's probably both, but no, you're right, and it's like, that's a big thing that I put the responsibility on myself, but I do that with almost everything, like, even down to, like, cleaning the house or taking out the like, I feel like I have to do it or no one else will do it. Where my husband will be like, I know men are hardwired differently, like, if I just said, "Babe, can you, like, do X, Y, and Z?" Like, he would do it in a second.
Yeah.
But, like, I just, like, have to, like, do it, and it's just yeah,
Yeah. It's that receiving. Do you find it hard to receive?
I do.
Yeah.
R
Okay.
From compliments to, like, actions to things, yes, I do.
Yeah. 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 And that's all kind of like the subconscious stuff that, I'm not getting the overwhelming feeling like, oh my God, you have to work on that. That's your missing fertility link. Not at
Yeah,
all.
no, yeah,
But yeah, like I said, if you start recognizing that, if you're ready to break that, and what it could possibly be is like your baby's like, no, I need you to be a receiver now because there's going to be some things that you need help with. And if you don't ask for help, my life and your life is going to get complicated, and it's going to be much harder. We're not going to have the journey that we should have together.
Right.
Right?
And talking about it with you now, actually, I had the thought, like, if I'm like that when the baby's here, it's going to be like a nightmare for me. I'll never sleep. I'll never eat.
Yep.
I'll be like a mess. So very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I wasn't a receiver either. I mean, all of this, the spirituality and the mindset stuff, I didn't have to do for my fertility journey. Mine was very physical. Even though I did mindset stuff and I slowed down and all that, this stuff came actually probably when my second son was 2, and I had finally gotten everything I ever wanted. I had this beautiful life around me, and I
Mm-hmm.
was very unhappy.
Mm.
And I never asked for help. So I had like a 4.5-year-old and a 2-year-old. We had moved countries. We we hadn't even started going through COVID yet, but like then that hit, and I basically put myself back into a physical health state that I was when I was dealing with fertility. My
Mm.
thyroid got wonky again, my gut health got poor again, I wasn't sleeping, and it was because I was unable to receive. I was unable to ask for help, and my cup was empty, and I
Mm-hmm.
was pouring from it still,
Right.
right? So I think there's this element um of breaking that cycle for yourself. So whatever, I mean, let's just face it, let's just say that your sister's still living with you when you have this baby. That's a
Mm-hmm.
whole new dynamic.
Right.
And I'm going to edit this part. My dad moved. So yes, I think I think there's a little things you can do, but I don't think it is affecting your fertility in that sense. But okay, I'm gonna give you some show notes, some resources of what gut health tests I run, the food sensitivity test. There are 2 ways you can move through it. If you decide like, hey, yeah, I would like your support, you can do it through an online program and you just pay for the testing. You get the testing, and if you're like, oh my God, I can't decipher this, then there's just like an extra fee for me to review and whatnot. Or you can just go straight into the one-to-one, which is both. It is the physical side, gut health, supplementation, diet, all that. But then also it's the energetics, using Psych K, using the emotion code to, just unravel some of these things that just needs to be unraveled, whether or
Yep.
not they're linked to the actual root cause of your fertility issues. But you'll get that email and just have a really good look. I'm all about following your intuition and what's right for you. Um, and that is the main thing I think people get working with me, is taking back that inner power and really like stepping into that role of becoming that conscious mama. So when harder things or just as hard things keep coming in your life, you get to move through them in a different way, a less controlling way, flowing, more connected to God, those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the baby is the cherry on top, for
Right.
sure. Yeah. But you're doing great. You're definitely doing
Thank you.
things.
When I was going into this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if she's met somebody like me. I'm like all over the place, but
No, it's so funny. Like, you're kind of an easy case for me.
oh, good. Okay. I like to
Yeah,
hear that.
it's pretty straightforward. So, yeah. And just know that, right now, even if you have a few investigation things that you need to look for, it's just that waiting zone. It's just that time, and the time seems a little bit longer, maybe just because you haven't had the right exact thing to focus on, and you
Right.
are a little bit like, we do it. We're like, oh no, that didn't work. So I'm going to ping over here, and that's going to work,
And
and
then you
it's,
see on Instagram, like, oh, did you know, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, well, maybe that's it. And it's
yeah.
just like enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was so lovely
Thank
meeting
you.
you.
So nice meeting
Yeah,
you and talking with you. And
definitely.
looking forward to that email.
Okay, great. Have a good night.
Thanks, Monica. You too.
Bye.
Thank you once again for tuning in to the Finding Fertility podcast. If you're loving this podcast, please leave us a rating and review and let us know how this podcast is supporting you to get steps closer to creating your dream family. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and we will see you next Friday for another episode of the Finding Fertility podcast.